Recently, the new Star Wars expanded universe has been, well, expanding in a lot of different areas, particularly because of the whole Journey to the Force Awakens initiative. It's basically like this big onslaught of books, comic books, all sorts of different novels for young adults, for kind of older audience. It's just this big whole publishing project that is supposed to entice, the fanboys of Star Wars to go watch the new movie and to maybe give them some tantalizing new information about the characters or maybe even the plot that's going to happen in the film. None of that has really come into fruition unless you count Shattered Empire, that book about that one dude's parents, as a big, crowning achievement in the expansion of the Star Wars universe. I personally don't. But anyway, the latest book it's not really part of this initiative. It more ties in with the recently or the upcoming Star Wars Battlefront game from EA. And as you can see from the title, it is called Battlefront Twilight Company. Now, for some reason, when this was announced, I was kind of optimistic about it, mostly because of some ideas that I was running in my head about what this could be. And in my mind, I imagine this is a more down-to-earth, sort of rebel-oriented book where we see how the rebellion fights without sort of the Star Wars filter on. And what I mean by that is we're going to see the rebellion as kind of more of a real rebellion. We're not going to see them as the heroic good guys where one dude can just jump into like a group of 50 stormtroopers and then mow them down without taking a hit or anything. Basically, it's going to be the book where when you get hit, you're going to be in the fucking infirmary for like a month, and then when you get back on the battlefield thinking you're going to kick some ass, you get shot in the head with a sniper. It's basically it would basically be that kind of book. And as more information came out about the book, like the title and the preview, I was getting more and more excited, and I was pretty cautiously optimistic that it was going to be good, especially because a lot of the new expanded universe material is actually pretty damn good, like Tarkin, the comic books by Marvel, of course, that Greg Rucka sort of short story that was done with Han Solo and Chewbacca was also a pretty good read, and I really didn't have any reason to think this would be bad. And despite this being a year where everything I've been excited for has turned out to be either mediocre or fucking shit, this really did not fail on any level whatsoever. This is exactly what I wanted it to be, and it excels at that. It is that down-to-earth, sort of grittier Star Wars rebel-centric book where you're basically following the exploits of a Sergeant Namir. He is a dude who grew up on a backwater planet. He never really got a proper education. He spent most of his adulthood and teenage years and even childhood fighting for different sorts of warlords, because on his planet there isn't really a centralized government. It's more like various warring tribes fighting against each other, and then the clones during the Clone Wars, and now the Empire, and it's just a big mess where little children are forced to get involved. And Amir spent most of his life fighting for various warlords, each one making big promises about how he's going to unite the world, how he's going to drive back the Empire, and how he's going to make everything fucking cool. And then at some point, Amir basically just couldn't take it anymore. He just couldn't, buy the bullshit anymore like he did as a kid. And then he decided to sign up with the Rebellion. And 3 years later, here we are with Twilight Company. Now, this is basically the forefront company of the rebellion. After the Death Star was destroyed, the Twilight Company and the entire rebellion basically had a massive sort of assault operation happen on the Empire, where they basically attacked dozens upon dozens of worlds at once, because the Empire was sort of in retreat. They were really demoralized by the death of Tarkin and the destruction of the Death Star, which was like 20 years in the works. And for a while, the rebellion was winning. Unfortunately, the Empire couldn't just be broken because you destroyed the Death Star, and soon things started going wrong. Twilight Company is forced to basically retreat from planets they spend entire months or weeks or even days, taking over. They have to leave friends behind, and it's a really, really bad situation. And this sort of bad luck of the Twilight Company is a recurring theme throughout the entire book. You just really feel sorry for these people, because They signed up to fight for the rebellion because most of them, except Namir, and I'm going to get to that, really believe in the cause of the rebellion. And what really makes this whole Twilight Company book work is because, unlike the original trilogy, where everybody is a two-dimensional, boring archetype, unless your name is Darth Vader and maybe Lando. Well, Lando is kind of a two-dimensional archetype, but Lando is he's kind of awesome enough to get over that. Most of the other original cast are no, not at all. They're not characters. They're basically glorified self-inserts, but I'm not going to get into that. The reason why this works here is because unlike the quote-unquote characters of the original trilogy, the characters in this are actually real people. They aren't 9 vulnerable Jedi or super snarky princesses or smugglers. Like, these are regular people who have signed up to fight this war because, for one reason or another, they believe in the cause and they want to see the Empire fall. And they come from all sorts of different walks of life. Like I said, Namir's from this backwater planet where he never had a proper education. He doesn't really understand certain social cues, which gets him into trouble with another particular character later on. But he has a very good mind for war because that's more or less the only thing he's ever known throughout his entire life. You have Gerund, who is he's like this big, burly, kind of wise sage of the whole group. You've got Charmer, who's kind of the resident psychotic, I should say. And you've got Brand, the ex-bounty hunter, who, for her own reasons, which I won't spoil here, has her own grudge against the Empire. And what the book really does well is that it doesn't really exaggerate any character to the point of just insanity. Like, the book throughout the whole thing feels very down to earth. This feels like you're almost reading the actual events that happened in a war in a galaxy far, far away. And the book doesn't shy away from showing the rebellion in a negative light. It shows kind of the dirtier sides of the whole war, how the rebels have to steal alcohol, like they have contraband, like dudes in World War II had. They take trophies from dead stormtroopers. They have all these propaganda posters and stuff when they conquer a planet where they basically tell the civilian population, join the rebellion and we're going to give you a whole bunch of cool shit to fight the Empire. And which is particularly great because a lot of that stuff comes in at the very beginning of the book. And the very beginning feels very Band of Brothers to me anyway. You have this whole situation where you're in a ruined city, you have the rebellion fighting, you have these close quarters engagements where stores are being used for cover, places that people used to live in are being blown up, and it feels very much like a World War II book throughout the first half, and that kind of comes back in the third half. And with the second half being kind of like this transitionary position where the situation for the rebellion is getting worse, and worse. And that's more or less why I really like the book. It's because it feels very down to earth despite being in Star Wars. There isn't any big exaggerated bullshit going on that you will find, whenever a Jedi shows up or whenever one of the big characters, I should say, pops in for their mandatory cameo or whatever. And the book actually does a pretty damn good job of avoiding that kind of pitfall where, we're going to put these characters from the book in the events of the movie, and then they're going to meet up, and it's going to be awesome, guys. Like, look, Namir's talking with Han Solo, which does happen, actually. But Han Solo is never named. Like, the book never makes a big deal out of it. It never stops to just say, look, this new character is talking with Han Solo. How cool is that? The book never does that. The book treats it as one soldier meeting another, having a drink, and then shooting the shit. It feels very human. It feels very down to earth. It feels like the guy who wrote this, Alexander Freed, knew that he didn't want to go overboard or over the top of this sort of shit, and he was able to pretty much control himself well throughout the whole book. And in fact, the book even has a brilliant subversion of this whole trope where a book character or a comic book character exclusively meets someone from the movies, and everyone makes a big deal out of it. And it has something to do with Darth Vader. I'm not going to say it, but it's kind of morbidly hilarious the way it goes, and it's pretty funny. It's sort of great subversion. I don't know if that's what he was going for, but it's a perfect way of showing that even if these characters are the heroes of their own storyline, they're not really a big deal in the big scope of the universe, which is fine. Not every character needs to, murder God with the power of friendship and a big-ass sword. Like, you anime fans are going to understand what I'm saying by that. And that's pretty much the sort of mentality the whole book is writing for. Like, these guys are not going to be Darth Vader. They're not going to drop-kick Palpatine down into whatever the fuck Vader dropped him into in Return of the Jedi. No, these are just people in this situation fighting a war, losing their friends, forced to live in this small, crammed ship where they barely have enough room, to breathe, where it's really dirty, really grimy. And that's kind of like the big strength of the book. It feels very human. It doesn't feel as Star Wars-y as you would expect it to be. It feels very, very Band of Brothers, and that's pretty much the biggest positive I can give to the book. What else was I going to say? The book is also fairly dense. It took me an entire day to read this thing, which could be because I'm sick and so my concentration is not as good as it would be. But yeah, if you're one of those guys who's looking for a book that's really going to take you a long-ass time to read through, I think you're going to be pretty okay with this one. And if you're someone who really enjoys that kind of Band of Brothers, World War II-esque stuff in a more of a sci-fi setting, I suppose, I think you're really going to dig this as well. If there's any real complaint I can make about the book is that it kind of has this tertiary character who shows up in a handful of chapters, and I'm not going to say her role is pointless, because it's not. It kind of gives you a viewpoint from the Empire's side, but not in the way you expect it to. Like, usually these kinds of situations, you have a soldier perspective from the Empire and a soldier perspective from the Rebellion. The Rebellion side is almost exclusively the one focused on, and that's easily the most compelling part of the book itself. The Empire side is more about this girl, this young woman, I should say, who really believes in the Empire, who really believes in the whole order and law thing, and she's forced to rat out her own people, she's forced to rat out her own uncle, and she thinks it's okay. Well, she feels guilty about it, of course. It's not like, oh, yeah, I've screwed over my uncle. It's cool. It's more like she feels guilty about doing it, but she knows it has to be done for the sake of keeping law and order on her planet. And I'm not going to say that her whole subplot is done poorly, because I really don't think it is. I think the few chapters that Alexander Freed actually bothers to give her work really, really well. The problem is, it's not really developed too much. You have just these big chunks of time, or pages, I should say, that are devoted solely to the Rebellion, and then she just pops in, has her whole little chapter to herself, and then she's gone for another big chunk of time, and then she pops back in. And it really isn't until the very, very end of the book where their paths finally converge. But it's not like a big deal. It's just like, oh, yeah, these two characters you've been following around have finally met. They meet for like a second, and then they split apart, and that's more or less it. It really feels weird. I'm not gonna say it's pointless, because, like I said, the chapters with her work really well to show how it is what's it like to live under the Empire with the whole Star Wars filter, taken away. And for that, it works. And she's an alright character in her own right. But the problem is, not enough of it is devoted to her for me to really say, yeah, this really needed to be in here. And that's pretty much the only problem I have with the book. I was having a blast throughout it all. Like I said, I spent an entire day reading it non-stop. I'm usually one of those guys who kind of does that, but if a book's really boring and I just can't force myself to, but this had me hooked right from the beginning. It has a lot of really well-developed characters, especially the main one, and his sort of Imperial counterpart. That's not the girl I just talked about. There's a whole other Imperial character who's really, really interesting in her own right. She's probably one of the best developed ones, along with Namir, in the entire new expanded universe from the new character side, I should say. And yeah, I really, really like this book, and I think if you guys are looking for something that's a bit more down to earth in the Star Wars universe, something that's far removed from the big heroics and spectacles of the movies and from a lot of the other EU material, I think you're really going to dig this one. Especially, like I said, like 5 times already if you're a Band of Brothers fan or a fan of sort of World War II gritty movies. So yeah, that's my review of Twilight Company, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you later. Bye.